Good morning, everyone. My name is Rodrigo Avila. I was born and raised in one of the most beautiful countries in the world, Chile. In the few minutes that I have, I will try to show you how God, by His amazing grace and providence, saved me and led me to this seminary. I grew up in a Christian home. My parents did everything they could to provide a Christian environment for me. They were and still are an example for me in so many ways. Since I have memory, I have professed faith in Christ, so I cannot tell you with certainty when I was truly converted. But I can say this. Every time I run away from God to pursue a life of sin, God, as a loving Father, providentially put me under difficult situations in order to bring me back to Himself. In other words, God did for me what the Father did for the prodigal son. He saw me, felt compassion for me, and ran and embraced me. I was a member of a little church where once in a while I was given the opportunity to teach in a Sunday school class or in the main service. It was during those occasions that I considered for the first time in my life the idea of becoming a preacher and a pastor. Also, about the same time, a godly, humble, and beautiful lady by the name of Sheila came from Minnesota to our little church to work as a missionary. When we first met, we were not interested on each other for different reasons. But with time and against all odds, we became friends, got engaged, and married in Chile in January of 2005. We lived okay. We lived there for a year in Minnesota, in Chile, and then we moved to Minnesota. During our time in Minnesota, my desire for being in ministry grew more and more until I was convinced that I was called to the ministry. So I figured if I wanted to be a pastor, I needed some books to prepare myself for the task. So I did some research on the internet, and I got some books on public speaking, apologetics, and church planting. That should do it, I thought. You need to understand that in Chile, it's really hard to find a good Bible college or a seminary. So the majority of pastors basically train themselves. So my plan was to do the same thing. Our church was going to support us to return to Chile and plant a church. As you can see, things were going according to my plans. But God providentially intervened. Proverbs 16:9 says, "The mind of man plans his way, but the Lord directs his steps." Suddenly, our church was not able to support us because of the financial crisis at that time. But I was so on fire to go back to my country that I was willing to go without any kind of support, no real training, and as soon as possible. I wish I could say that I was being intrepid and fearless, but in reality, I was being stupid and foolish. Because of my ignorance about basic biblical truths, I got drawn into the seeker-sensitive movement. One day, I was looking on the internet for sermons by a purpose-driven pastor, but instead I found a short video by John MacArthur criticizing the shallow way this pastor presented the gospel. At first, I was offended and upset by MacArthur's comments, but I couldn't stop thinking about what he said and finally realized that he was right. Then I was grieved when I understood that the gospel that I was planning to take to my country was a false gospel, and that a false gospel could only produce false converts. I wanted to know more about this MacArthur. I started to listen to his sermons online. Then providentially, I got laid off from my job, and I was able to listen to 3 or 4 of his sermons daily. It just took a few weeks to realize that I was not ready at all to be a minister. So I said to myself, I'm not going anywhere until I understand the major truths of the Bible. Then I found out about the Master's Seminary. So I decided to come to the Shepherd's Conference in 2010 and get an appointment with Ray Merringer. After we talked, it wasn't long until I decided to enroll at TMS, and I started classes a few months later. During our time here, my family and I have been blessed by God's goodness in the birth of our second son, Evan, the friends that we have made, and the outstanding teaching at seminary. God provided me with a job as a custodian here at Grace Church for my first 3 years. Then I got the best job I had so far at Grace, at Gracia a Vosotros, the Spanish version of Grace to You, as an internet coordinator and an editor of MacArthur's sermons translated into Spanish. My family and I have also experienced difficulties and trials. Physically, I had a really painful experience with kidney stones during finals weeks. Emotionally, my wife and I had one of the saddest experiences a parent can have, the loss of 2 of our children before they were born. We already had a miscarriage just before coming to seminary, and the 3rd time it happened, it was really tough for me. But the Lord comforted us with the truth of His word. Our loss motivated me to think about heaven and the joy that it will be when I meet Christ face to face, and also when I meet our 3 children already there. When King David's infant son died, he was comforted by the hope that all children that died at an early age go directly to heaven. David said this about his son: "He will not return to me, but I will go to him." There are many things I have experienced here that I will treasure in my heart forever. Things that time won't allow me to share with you this morning, so I just want to close by thanking my beloved wife, Sheila. She has endured many hard things, but the Lord has made her stronger and wiser. She has been my faithful friend and helper. I love her dearly. And most of all, I want to thank the Lord for His unending love, patience, and grace toward me, an unworthy sinner. Thank you all. God bless you.